Hi. Yes, I'm going to talk about wildlife rehabilitation and particularly the rescue of Rialto. Oh, he was a sea otter pup that we rehabilitated for 2 months this summer. So Rialto was found stranded on Rialto Beach in Washington, August 1st, 2016. He was in pretty bad shape. He was severely emaciated and had pneumonia when he arrived here at the aquarium. And if he wasn't found, he would have been dead probably within hours. So why do we do this was a question that I started asking myself. For the individual, certainly. I think Rialto really appreciated that we did this, so for sure for the individual. For the population, sometimes yes, sometimes no, because, for example, Rialto was rescued so young and so sick that he was hand-raised by humans, and sea otters don't do very well when they're hand-raised by humans and then let back out into the environment because they think they're humans. So we've really found out that if sea otters are going to be released when they're found as pups, they need to be raised by surrogate moms, and we couldn't do that with Rialto because he was just too sick. So for people, and I would argue yes for people, and for example, we got this story on our blog about the person that found Rialto, and they found him while camping along the Olympic coast, and when they reported Rialto to the ranger and then hiked back to the campsite, they really worried about him. And they were overjoyed to hear that he was rescued and brought to the Seattle Aquarium and was cured of his pneumonia and his emaciation. And they were really thankful. Thank you so much to everybody who helped with his rescue, they said. We can finally sleep at night now. It's been a long month worrying about him. So it's empathy, and Rialto really can stimulate this. And empathy, there's lots of definitions for empathy, and you can get really into this, as Jim knows, but it's basically the understanding and sharing feelings towards another and basically feeling well-being towards another. And I think Rialto really did that for a lot of people and still does it. So in this day and age of, electronic communications, I actually received some handwritten letters, which was really special. So one was from a young man, and he said, "Dear Ms. Larson, I read about Rialto with my mom. I am 5 years old and love otters. This picture shows me and my otter, Kevin Slider Couch. I got him at the Georgia Aquarium, and I emptied my whole piggy bank, which was about $28, to help pay for Rialto's care. Good luck. Sincerely, Jack Couch," which was really wonderful. Yeah. And we wrote back to him and thanked him and gave him some tickets to the aquarium. And then this was from an older person, just said, "Thank you for the loving care you give Rialto. That was the most heartwarming story in the news for a very long time. Usually it's been floods, killings, elections. She finally has a mama who looked after its well-being." The photo in the Seattle Times on 9/20 with his paws in the air, high in the air, saying, "This is the life. Thanks again for a significant job." So it is this empathy that Rialto stimulates that really makes him a great ambassador for his species. To talk about conservation of sea otters, and particularly the Washington sea otters, because he's the only Washington sea otter in captivity, and he can tell the story of the Washington sea otters that runs from extirpation when they were hunted to extinction during the fur trade in 1910 to repopulation in the early 1970s when they were translocated back to Washington State from Alaska. So Washington didn't have sea otters off of our coast for 60 years. And during that time, we had the outer coast was less complex. There were more urchin barrens and there was less kelp. But with the introduction of the sea otters, there became more complex kelp forest ecosystems that provide habitat for juvenile salmon, rockfish, and many other animals. So this is when he was a young otter in care here. And then I just wanted to show you what he looks like later when he was transferred to his new forever home at the Vancouver Aquarium. Let me get rid of this. There you go. And he's a healthy young otter, no longer sick, just plays. And I just want to thank the Seattle Aquarium for their commitment to conservation of the marine environment, and particularly to the conservation of this life. And I hope that Rialto lives a long life and inspires empathy and conservation of sea otters. Thank you.